Our third speaker for the morning is Alfred Raouf, who's an engineer. He has also been part of the revolution and is still active. He's also co-founder of the revolutionary movement, The Free Egyptian. Alfred.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I think my colleagues here have explained enough about what happened, and the scene now in Egypt. I will try to have a look a little bit to the future. Maybe not past the revolution, but in the next stages of the revolution. Egypt, since its independence in 1952, well, 1956 maybe, from the British Empire, has only been a dictatorship. We have not had democracy in Egypt since then. Especially in the last 30 years, any sort of activist or politician or caliber that would start emerging would immediately be suppressed by the regime. So throughout these years, we did not practice politics or democracy really to its extent. And that's why on the 11th of February, when Mubarak stepped down, we did not really find a body that can resume the revolution or assume power, take the responsibility and go ahead. We did not have a leader. Maybe that worked somehow into our favor later on, that we didn't have a leader, so they couldn't find who to shoot. We were just coming up from every and each corner. But the fact is, we lack the bodies that can resume and assume power. We don't have the democratic institutions that we need. At the moment, some of the revolutionaries or some of the activists have a different view or have a different idea about what's the way forward. Some of them have a revolutionary look on matters. They want immediate, drastic change, immediately. And some of them believe in steady-paced reform. Well, the problem that faces both is that the revolutionary powers, or the secular powers, who stand for real democracy and freedoms and liberties and human rights, they lack 5 main points, in my opinion. And that is because we never had democracy. We lack organization, structure, experience, political experience, democratic experience, grassroots connections and grassroots existence. We don't have connections with the grassroots, not so much. We never needed to do that. And we lack, most importantly, the political calibers that can take this country forward. These are the 5 main things that I think the revolutionary powers and the secular powers and the civil powers need to develop in the next period. Maybe not post-revolution, but actually while the revolution is happening. Because one day, I believe this revolution will succeed. And then there will be a great need for this to exist. Organization, structure, experience, calibers, and grassroots connections. Before I came here, I thought that all what we need to do is build political parties. We don't have strong political parties and we need to build them. And this is all what we need to do to be able to assume power. But what I learned here is that for democracy to be real, it needs to stem out of people. And it needs to be rooted in people. It needs to be practiced and embraced by people. Because otherwise it's not going to function. And maybe this is the responsibility, or maybe this effort needs to be exerted by NGOs, which at the moment are under a big strike. Human rights organizations at this very moment have been struck in Egypt. Their offices has been stormed, their belongings confiscated, and it's tough at the moment. But I think they can do something in this regard, making democracy stem from the people. I think political parties as well need to exert some effort in that regard. But what I learned here is, as long as people don't believe in democracy, as long as they don't practice it, it's not going to work. We have some challenges ahead, I think. This revolution faces a few challenges and one imminent threat. Maybe there are other threats that I can't see, but there is one that I can see clearly. I also would like to mention that I don't think anybody has a very clear, holistic view of what's happening in Egypt now. No one has enough information to actually have this view. So I apologize if I give you a very skewed or a very limited view, but this is what I see. So the challenges that we have are three, in my opinion, and that's constitution. We have to put a real strong fight against SCAF. SCAF is the Supreme Council of Armed Forces. So we have to put a really strong fight against SCAF and against the fundamental or fanatic Islamic factions or political parties to have rights, civil rights, liberties, human rights, part of our constitution. We have to lay the ground for real democracy to be able to flourish. And this is going to be a big challenge. The second challenge is corruption. And there is corruption everywhere in the world, but what is fantastic about Egypt is that in the last 30 years under Mubarak regime, corruption is not anymore a phenomenon. It's a lifestyle. This is how we do our business. This is how we live. Even the most honest man to put in his pocket when he's going to any governmental office. It's just how we do it. It's the way of our life. And this is going to take a lot of time to overcome. And this is going to be a big challenge once the revolution starts prevailing. The third one is the expectations of the people. And this, I think, will put us in the same shoes the leaders of the independence movements in the 50s and 60s were at. They had independence, and they were very happy with independence and freedom from the colonial empires, but they were going to face a great challenge. And people were waiting for the fruits of liberation. And at the moment, people as well in Egypt will be waiting for the fruits of the revolution, the fruits of democracy. Everybody has high hopes. And I'm afraid if we do not manage to meet these expectations, people will turn their back on the revolution and they will turn their back on democracy. I was very pleased to meet one of the colleagues here from Indonesia, and it has been like 10, 11 years now since the revolution, and he told me something that really worried me, and that is people are starting now in Indonesia to think they should again have a military, a president with military background, because they have not seen the fruits of the revolution. And this is going to be a great challenge that we need to face and we need to work on, because without giving them a return, they will turn their backs on the revolution. Now there's the imminent threat. And some people see SCAF as an imminent threat, but I think it's just, I think we will be able to overcome SCAF. We will manage. That's just a matter of time. But the great threat that I see is the reactionary regimes around Egypt. These reactionary regimes do not want to see a real functioning democracy in Egypt, because this will make it clear to their people that it can work for the Arabs, and they will start being dissatisfied. I namely say Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait. They are not happy with the revolution in Egypt, and they have exerted every effort to suppress it. There has been an investigation by the government, and it has proven that these countries have financed the hardline fundamental Islamists in Egypt with a lot of money, about 270 million Egyptian pounds, I think around $100,000 or something like that. And this is to promote a very hardline Wahhabi doctrine or version of Islam in opposition, or rather than the moderate Islam that Egypt has always embraced. And this is an imminent threat that I see, because these reactionary regimes do not really believe in human rights or women's rights or civil rights, and it's going to be less. So I think this is something very important that we need to look at. I would like to end, and if you give me 1 minute, we're preparing now for the January 25th anniversary. A lot of revolutionary powers are working so hard for this, and this brings me to what I would like to end with. And it's what Gandhi told Nehru when Nehru wanted to stage a revolution. While Gandhi insisted on peaceful civil disobedience. And he told him, and please allow me to read, he said to Nehru, "Humility is what stops your ego being a barrier between you and the subject of the matter, which is independence from the empire. If you face their arrogance of power with your arrogance of revolution, their arrogance will beat your arrogance. Be humble. India is not going to be able to defeat the empire with arrogance, but will defeat it with humility." And I think we should think about this statement as revolutionary powers. Thank you very much.